Hello and welcome back to the show. So, for today's episode, I am really excited about our guest. He is Adam Gillespie, who is the founder of Agent Prompt University and really the leading voice of AI in real estate for real estate agents. In 2024, he was actually recognized by Inman as the best use of AI by any agent or team in the entire country. And that is something that I don't think a lot of people can say, especially in this day and age where there's some people who don't even know what AI is. But hopefully today, Adam will help us answer some of these questions, help us understand how to use AI as real estate agents, teams, and broker owners. And of course, Adam is also a fellow Wolfpack brother, so I'm super excited to have him on. But Adam, man, welcome to the show. It is so good to have you on here.
Dude, I'm so happy to be here, Kobe, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a wild ride this year, dude. I can't believe that the Inman gave me an award for best use of AI. Like it was definitely one of those moments where I had to pinch myself because I was like, is this real? Like so it was cool, man. So being recognized for something like that just kind of further cements in what I'm trying to do, which is just to show agents how to use this practically. So it actually does, save us time and improves the customer experience for us.
Yeah, for sure, man. So before we get started anything, I just want to ask you one quick question, Adam, and that is, are we actually talking to you right now, Adam, the person, or are we talking to Adam, the avatar that was AI generated?
Glitch? No, just kidding. Yeah, no, it's me for now. Tomorrow might be a different story. Actually, what's really funny, and I won't go down the rabbit hole, but HeyGen just dropped some info this morning that they've massively upgraded their AI avatars. So I've been kind of waiting for this because there's so many use cases for an avatar for us in our industry.
Oh yeah, for sure. We were just talking about HeyGen earlier this morning as well. So that is definitely a really cool resource, which I'm sure we're going to dig into here today. But Adam, man, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you get into this? I mean, AI itself is pretty new as far as just as an industry and a technology as a whole. So how did you just really kind of jump on this and became the leading pioneer, especially for real estate agents in this space?
Yeah, man. So basically, it kind of starts back in my band days. So way back in the day, and this is like 2004, we were using a robot on MySpace. So you're young, so you might not remember what MySpace is. But MySpace was basically like Facebook, right? So the big difference is that we used to have like music that could play on our page. So we had like a main profile page, kind of like you do on Facebook, but you could comment on somebody's page, not just a post, right? So it wasn't really post. It was like, here's our page, and then you could go around and comment on other people's pages. Well, we had a bot that would basically automatically post my song's music. So MySpace had music players as well. So we'd upload all our music to MySpace, and then it would automatically post these comments with my music player on autoplay on like famous people's pages and just really popular people. And it racked up thousands of plays on our MySpace player. And it got the attention of a bunch of people. Like, it's kind of one of those things where we made ourselves out to be a lot bigger than we really were online, and it worked. So, long story short, we ended up winning some competitions after we started getting recognized. We started playing shows. And then we entered a Best Man in Denver competition and we won that. Ended up going on tour with a couple of we played all of the local shows here in Denver with the big bands like Korn and Slipknot and Linkin Park, and just got to really have a good time. And then we went on a couple of little small league tours with our record label. And then I came back in like 2014 and I was like, dang, man, I should probably get a real job because I'm not making any money here. Uh, so quickly realized that the only way to financial freedom was to own my own business, right? I left high school in 10th grade to pursue a music career and it just never happened. So if I really wanted any shot at doing anything other than working at the front desk somewhere, I needed to go into entrepreneurism. So started a construction company and didn't like having employees. And then I found out that, hey, with real estate, I'm a solo agent. If I don't do this, then I don't have anybody else to blame but myself, right? So it was kind of one of those things where I wanted that accountability on my own end, and I really wanted to be able to steer my own ship. So I got into real estate and quickly realized how similar being a professional musician and a real estate agent is. And a lot of people don't realize this, but as a musician, we stay at home unless you're playing a show or you're on a, or you're doing something like an interview or practicing, right? So there's all of these different aspects, but we're constantly trying to create new ways for people to know who we are. So marketing is huge inside of being a business. And I saw that in real estate, and I was like, oh man, I can use all my flyer designing skills that we used to use for No Enough Standing, and then we can bring it into real estate. So I started doing that, and then this thing called ChatGPT got released to us and started gaining popularity in November of 2022. So that's 2 years ago now. And my sister actually hit me up and she was like, hey, did you see this new AI stuff? And I was like, no. But I jumped on it thinking it was going to be like a new Google, where I figured it would just be a more efficient way to browse Google. Because I don't know about you, but every time we throw something in Google, you get hit with like 90 ads, right? And it's almost just like what's real and what's not. It's like South Park even made that episode about it, dude. Sponsored content.
Yes.
So yeah, I started playing around on ChatGPT, and I realized really, really quickly that this can change the way that we do work as real estate agents as far as the tedious, repetitive tasks go, right? So I just started testing it, seeing where I could use it inside the business. And next thing you know, we're jamming out on some Wolfpack calls, and I start talking about how I'm using it. And, Louie and Mike and everybody are like, hey, whoa, what'd you say? Like, hang on. So then we started talking about how we could spread this out to people. And that's when we created Agent Prompt University and decided to get that out to the masses.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So you've always kind of had like a mind for tech, right? Because you were using that like even back in trying to promote your music and your band and everything. So when you were looking at AI, I'm sure it kind of came, not necessarily like super like naturally, because everybody's just they have to get used to it. But for you, you're familiar with it. You at least understand the capabilities of it. So for the people out there, right? I'm sure you're training a ton of agents who are various levels of understanding and being able to utilize tech. So for
Yeah.
the people out there who might be, not necessarily tech savvy, maybe this is kind of the first time they're diving into it and, they've kind of skipped all the social media stuff in the beginning and now all of a sudden they're plunged into this world of AI. What are your best tips for them to just get started, get familiar with it without being overwhelmed and just quitting on the spot within a couple of days?
Yeah, first and foremost, you're not going to break it, right? So most people get really overwhelmed because they want to do the right things, right? Well, if you've never been around AI before, then you just really need to play with it and just see what it can do. Now, with that being said, you have to understand at least a little bit about how a large language model works just because it's designed to respond, right? So ChatGPT will respond no matter what you ask it, even if that information's wrong. And ChatGPT can be convincingly wrong. So understanding the basis of how a large language model works is key. But once you get that real basic understanding down, then it's much more easier to use, right? So for example, without going down the boring part of Chat GPT, because everybody wants to get into the goods, right? But if we don't understand the baseline of how it works, then you can misuse it. And Chat GPT doesn't read, right? Like a lot of people think it does because you can just type in a phrase and then it'll give you a human-like response, right? And not only that, but it's trained on all this data, so it's almost like having a digital encyclopedia at your hands, right? I don't know if you remember what encyclopedias were, but I don't think they use them anymore. Now it's just the internet. But yeah, it's like all of this knowledge packed into one, right? But it's generative. So it's designed to always formulate a response. So 99% of people that use AI out the gate think that it actually can reason and understand exactly what it is that you're saying. But what ChatGPT is in a nutshell is a very, very advanced next token predictor. Okay, so I want you guys to picture it like this, where I type a phrase into ChatGPT and ChatGPT doesn't actually read that phrase. Instead, it fragments it into numerical tokens in what's called a process of tokenization. So it takes the phrase and turns it into these little codes that it looks at. And then it says, oh, based on the order of these codes, out of all my vast knowledge, right? Like with current ChatGPT, it's 1.8 trillion parameters. So basically the entire internet. It's been trained on all this. So it says, based on the series of numerical tokens that I've just got, what would be the most likely response? And then it uses what's called a neural network to basically assign weights to all the possible possibilities. And then it basically the largest weight wins all the way until there's one left, right? And then that's the response that you get. It's a little more complicated than that because they use like natural language processing to formulate that response to make it sound human. But what's actually occurred in the background was just it predicted what was supposed to come next. Okay. So if you ask ChatGPT to read or to create a 2,000 word blog, it won't be able to create the 2,000 word blog because it doesn't actually function in the process of which it recognizes words. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it does. I think it's interesting the way that you explained everything because a lot of people don't know what it is, right? They don't understand that it's predictive as far as its capabilities.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets into, them not getting the results that they want when they're actually utilizing it for copywriting or, daily use purposes.
Yeah, exactly. This is where prompt engineering becomes so important because basically what we're doing is we're giving extreme detail on the area of focus that we want ChatGPT to be in, and we give it the role and the goal, and we give it examples and all of this stuff. So that way we really dial it down a certain road to get those answers that we want. So while it doesn't read, it can still feel a lot like it reads what we're saying because of its ability to predict what's supposed to come next, right? So a lot of people do go wrong with that because they'll ask it to do things that it either cannot do or they won't give it enough context. So it'll just hallucinate a response. And then that's when people are like, oh, this doesn't work the way I wanted it to.
Right, exactly. And that's something that I figured out personally as well when I was beginning to play around with it. I feel like the more you use it, definitely the better you get at it because you can, even if you don't maybe understand how it works on the back end, you can at least find patterns as far as like, okay, so I said this, it gave me a better results than after I said something else or said this differently. So, you
Yeah.
mentioned prompt engineering, right, with ChatGPT. So I think that is very interesting and it's very important as well. So what are some of your tips on, getting the best results from ChatGPT? Now, obviously, with different purposes, you're gonna, have a different prompt, but what are some things that you've seen out there that people aren't doing or they're doing wrong that it could be just pretty quickly fixed in order to get a much higher quality response?
Yeah. I mean, you need to have a role, it needs to have a goal, and you need to provide it with a couple of examples. If you just take those three things, then you're going to see significantly better output from the model, right? So when I say role, you just want to establish a role for it. So whether that's like, let's say for instance that you want to create a market update video, right? So you could establish ChatGPT to take on the role of a copywriter that specializes in real estate marketing, right? And then you could even give it some pretty details. Like you could give it the details of a specific marketing agency like InMotion or, some of those other big real estate marketing companies that have a specific way of marketing. And then you can get ChatGPT because once again, it knows like everything, right? So it'll know who these marketing companies are and their marketing tactics. And then you can kind of drill that down. And then you've given it that role, right? So now it's like, oh man, I'm going to be your copywriter who's trained like in motion real estate that is ready to help you create a script for your market update, right? So then you give it that goal, right? The goal here is to research the web, find the current market statistics for the Denver metro area as of November 2024, outline those and help me come up with the script for my video. So now we've given it that goal, right? So it's much more than just a single, hey, can you do this for me? And then you get an output. That's called zero shot prompting. And it doesn't give us good results. So when we're giving it a role and a goal, and then we're giving it examples, what we're doing is we're taking it up a notch. We're doing what's called few shot or multi-shot prompting, where we're giving it multiple examples or a few different examples. Plus, we're establishing that role and that goal. And then from there, you got to think of it as like a consultative experience where you're going to chat, right? This is why it's called Chat GPT and not Prompt GPT. So that way we can chat back and forth to refine that output till we get that perfect generation that we were looking for.
Yeah, and that is something that I do as well. You always kind of want to assign it a role in the beginning, and then
Yes.
you give it exactly what you want it as far as, what is it that you want as a finished product, and then the examples part. I think that's very helpful for me personally. I write blog posts,
Mhm.
so I've done a lot of that before AI came out. So I would always, if I wanted to write like myself, upload things that I've written in the past so that way it can actually formulate its responses based on something that I would actually write. So that part I think is huge. I don't think enough people utilize or understand that they can use examples to help their ChatGPT, model push out better quality responses, or at least more tailored responses that they're
Yeah.
looking for.
Yeah, because you want it to sound like you at the end of the day, right? So I do teach agents how to like clone themselves into ChatGPT, where you can clone your writing style in, and you can also clone your speaking style as well. So like I'll have agents that have a lot of YouTube material or can speak unscripted. We'll transcribe that information into a large document, and we'll get as much of it as we can. So if you've got, 40 videos on YouTube that are all unscripted, I mean, like bring all 40 in, transcribe them, and put it in a document, and then just label that document my speaking style. And then you can upload that to any multimodal version of ChatGPT. So ChatGPT 4.0, which stands for Omni, you can upload that there, and then it'll automatically be programmed to your speaking style based on that document. So when you're like, hey, I want to create this, or I want to do that, I want to do it in my style, like it'll now start talking like you. So this works great for social media, responding to emails, creating text messages, DMing, pretty much you name it. It's like your little virtual clone that's there to, take a lot of the creative burden off of your shoulders while we're working so many different roles.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love you mentioned, responding to emails, creating text messages. These are all things that people can use it for, right? You can,
Yeah.
even like respond to a difficult text message you're getting from a client or something like that, are all things that I think agents can be using it for that they may not know that they can be using it for, as well. So,
Yeah.
something else I really want to get your take on was, there's people out there, I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't know what custom GPTs are. I'm sure you do know what that is. So is that something that you are spending any time on, is building custom GPTs? Because I've seen people utilize them in a variety of different ways for internal business purposes. Also, I've seen people on the other end of that spectrum even create ones that they've made into products where they charge monthly subscriptions to as well. So what is your take on that? How are you utilizing it for your business, and how are you teaching other agents to utilize it as well?
Yeah, man. So building GPTs, the best way to wrap your head around that is just think of it like a custom hyper trained chat that you don't have to prime every time you go to use it, right? Like with regular chats, every time you open up a new chat, it's a blank model of chat GPT. You have to role prime it and all of that. So when we do custom GPTs, we're doing all of that front end work in the beginning. And then now you have every time you open a new chat with that GPT, it's pre-programmed for what we wanted it to, the role and the goal that we wanted it to take. Um, so there's tons of case uses for it. Like first and foremost, the very first GPT I ever built was my AI clone. So it's AI Adam, and I can just pull that up and I can literally just copy somebody's message, say, hey, respond to this. This is what I want to say. And I don't even have to go into detail of what I want to say. Like I can say, hey, this person just sent me this email. Please respond with excitement and enthusiasm, right? So I'm taking something that would have usually taken a couple of minutes for me to think about, and I break it down into just a couple of seconds, and then I'm able to copy and paste that and stick it off, and it still sounds like it was written by me. Now, some of the naysayers out there will say, well, that's not you writing it. Well, yeah, neither is the CEO of OpenAI when he writes an email or a tweet. He sends it to his VA, or not his VA, but his assistant, and they create it for him, right? So when we do it like this via a custom GPT, it's like having that assistant there, but even better because that assistant knows how to talk exactly like you, knows how to use your word structure, knows how to use your different types of slang that you use, whatever that may be. So our message comes across as significantly more personal, and it really does good things for us, especially during like the nurture process of the real estate journey with a lot of the clients that aren't ready, right? Like as we're emailing them and we're sending them newsletters, if they're generic and they sound like any other agent, or we're using, like keeping current matters to do our blogs, and we're sending these blogs that probably 13 other agents sent them to, the personalization drops off dramatically, right? So being able to have that custom GPT that can do that can make these more personalized and continue to bring your personality and your sales style out in front of these people that you haven't been able to physically be in front of yet. So huge things on there. I know I kind of digressed on that, but yeah, there's so many different use cases. Like you had mentioned, paywalling a GPT, right? Which is basically creating an app that's powered by a GPT and then selling it. That's a huge thing right now. As a matter of fact, some of the bigger GPT creators are already getting monetized inside OpenAI's GPT store. So think of the App Store when it first came out for iPhone, right? Like what we had the iPhone in like 2007. And then the App Store came out shortly after that, and people got rich off of it, right? Just creating these apps. Well, what makes a GPT so much crazier than that is that it's low code, no code, right? Like we don't have to know any type of coding to be able to produce these apps, put them out there for public use, and see who ends up using it. So there's an opportunity for potential income for people that are into creating these custom GPTs.
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that because when I was building like my first couple custom GPTs, it was always frustrating to me because I almost felt like I wasn't spending enough time building one, and it was like, am I putting in enough work? Should it be, should I put in more time? Because it's not like easy, right? Nothing's easy, but it was so simple to put it together because you don't have any coding. There is word limits as far as like how the instructions and how much you can put in there
Right.
and the knowledge base as well. So maybe you can touch a little bit on that, on like just what goes into creating a custom GPT. Because I think when people hear about it, they're like, whoa, this is going to take me hours. But once you created a couple of them, you can pretty much create quite a few of them, I think.
Yeah, I can do them in minutes. And for the beginners out there that have never done it, it's just chatting. You're literally just telling ChatGPT what you want, right? And it starts to build it in the background for you. And now, as you become a little bit more advanced, you can go in there and you can start manipulating the configuration, aka typing in your own prompts inside the instructions. Like you said, we have an instructions box, lets you hold up to 8,000 characters in there. So a pretty decent amount, right? But not like an entire book. But if you learn how to word your instructions properly and very, very clear, then you can do things like create step sequences where you can have the GPT go through a series of steps in one prompt, right? So, for example, I created a GPT that helps agents create blogs. And what they do is they basically just click the box on the top that says create a blog. And then what it's going to do is it's going to say, oh, okay, cool. Before I create the blog, what city and state are you in? And do you want to upload your speech patterns? Right. So you upload your speech patterns, tell them that you're in Denver, Colorado. And then it's like, oh, great. Here's 5 different blog ideas. Choose which one you want. So you say, oh, okay, well, I like number 3. You choose number 3. Well, then the GPT now goes into its step sequencing mode and it goes, okay, cool. Here's the entire blog. Here's the SEO keywords. Here's the meta description. And now I'll use Dolly 3 to create the image that fits the blog. So it does these entire steps off of one click. And it takes a blog and gets you completely ready to post it on your website, including SEO optimization, in about 45 seconds to a minute, something that takes us hours typically.
Yeah, and that's so cool that you can do that now. And having that as part of your toolkit is going to save you so much time. And you mentioned SEO optimization. This is something that I do as well personally. So,
Yeah.
we talked maybe a little bit about this offline, just really briefly, but what is your take on people writing SEO optimized blog posts for Google? Is Google actually flagging these posts? Are AI written posts never going to rank? What does that look like as far as the landscape now, but also moving forward in the next couple of years?
Yeah, so if you're just using ChatGPT and you're not having it replicate your speech patterns or your writing style, then you're going to get inherently AI produced content, right? Now, when it comes to AI detection software, the most accurate piece of AI detection software is owned by OpenAI, and they've even admitted it's only 30% accurate, right? So, yes, they're still using these, but it's not sustainable and it's not verifiable. ChatGPT, though, and you know this from using it, there's a certain way that it phrases things and a certain language that it has. And if we're not telling ChatGPT to change this or make variations, then you're gonna get what sounds like ChatGPT created material. And the more that the general public gets exposed to this, the easier it's going to be to pick out. So this is why it's so important to program your speech patterns in. And even today, there's a website out there called undetectable.ai. And if you do a regular chat GPT post and put it in there, it'll probably pull it up as AI generated. If you have it write it in your speech patterns, especially if you speak uniquely like me, I tend to use a lot of like slang. I'm like, what's up, dude, bro? I'm, that rock and roll kind of vibe. Like it'll write that and I'll throw it in undetectable and it'll say, yeah, this appears to be written as human, right? So is Google going to penalize? Yes, I think that they will, even if they only have a partially accurate system. So it's very important on that. And then when we talk about like SEO optimization, I want to clarify that ChatGPT can help you with SEO, but it cannot determine competition or search rate, right? It's just randomly picking what would be a typical term searched on the internet, right? So there's ways to do proper SEO optimization inside of ChatGPT, and letting ChatGPT determine which keywords to use is probably not the best direction to go. Unless you're like me, I don't really know much about SEO, and I just kind of, when I'm creating these blogs, I'm like, just give me a list of SEO, like of keywords, and it gives me like, oh, searching first time home buyer guide Colorado, right? So I'm just like, yeah, these work. But like somebody like you who actually knows the business and the ins and outs, like it would be better serving to you, and you'd be able to create a much more optimized blog if you already knew your search words that you want that are low competition and high search. And then you can tell Chat GPT to generate the blog utilizing these SEO keywords, right? And then it'll make the blog SEO keyword heavy based on those low competition, high search rate keywords, and then you get a much more better result from it, right? But even going through the simple route, like I said, where I don't do that preemptive research, I've already noticed a major uptick in my website. Like I post everything to Lofty, and I think consistency is going to be key with Google as well. The more active they see you on there, the more your website's posting, the more you're updating to Google My Business, the more Google goes, hey, these guys are legit, right? So it kind of helps you become a little bit more discoverable. But yeah, I think that there's like I said, use cases for it, but don't depend completely on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are different things that you can do with it, and I think you're absolutely right. This is exactly what I do. I don't necessarily use ChatGPT to pick exactly what keywords to write for. We have a better idea of like what keywords we want to rank for, and then we then take it in to create the like just the general content, like the meat of the content. But then we also do go back and actually, optimize the content as well for our blogs as well in order to make sure that they're hitting certain metrics for other tools that are determining the SEO score of the
Right.
post. So that is
Like
something that I think,
linking and all that stuff, right?
yeah, exactly. Those are things that ChatGPT couldn't necessarily do. Although sometimes it does a pretty good job because one of the things for SEO is you want to have a certain word certain amount of times. Well, you can tell it to insert that word into the post certain amount of times, so that saves you a ton of time as far as
Right.
writing content goes.
Yeah, and be careful with that though, because remember it can't count, right? So like everybody who's watching this right now, if you're around a computer, I want you to go to ChatGPT. It doesn't matter what version you're on, as long as it's not O1 Preview or O1 Mini, because those are completely different models. Those are reasoning models. But if you go to any ChatGPT 4, ChatGPT 4o, ChatGPT 4o Mini, and you ask it how many R's are in the word strawberry, you'll be surprised that it can't get it right, right? And that's just because it doesn't count like that, right? So yes, what you said is partially correct, right? Because what they can do is you could say, hey, this is an SEO word that I want you to use, and it needs to be absolutely heavily used. It'll use it as many times as it can. But if you're like, hey, this word must be used 20 times, your chances of getting that exact 20 are slim. It might get it by luck, but it won't. It'll probably be more or slightly less than that. But that's just once again understanding the model and the tokenization process of it. But it's like I said, it's still totally something that I would do, but I just wouldn't expect it to be an exact number. Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what we're getting as well as far as results. Whenever I tell it to have it 30 times, it's always hitting 20, right? It's always getting it 20 times. But for me, that's good enough. So,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like you can't expect these AI tools to be perfect, right? You have to understand its limitations, its capabilities, but just having it 20 times, right, in the post saved me a ton of time than if I had to go back and do it manually by myself. So just that in
Yeah.
itself is a huge time saving tool. So I don't know, man. So just kind of pivoting a little bit into other tools, maybe outside of ChatGPT.
Mhm.
So for real estate agents, there's obviously ChatGPT, which they can create a free account on. They can pay $20 for the pro account, which I highly encourage people to do. But there are also a ton of, other tools out there, right? Like HeyGen, we were talking about earlier on the show. that agents can utilize for different purposes, right? So what are some other tools out there that you recommend that agents are looking into, and some other use cases that may save people a ton of time, but they just may not be exposed to it or just not may not be familiar with these tools?
Yeah, so there's so many. I could go down a big list for you, but let me summarize it to the best ones, right? So when it comes to image generation, I think Midjourney is the number one. It's a great app. I use Midjourney because of the realism that it has to create stock-like photos of houses, right? So we use this during like our ads, through like newsletters and stuff like that, where I can get a photo generated of a house that looks really awesome that I don't have to ask permission to use, right? Like that's one of the biggest drains, I think, is if you're heavy into photo and marketing materials and stuff like that, you've probably had a subscription to iStock, and you probably thought to yourself, like, this is a ridiculously large amount of money to pay for some pictures. You know what I mean? So being able to utilize an image generator like Midjourney to create realism looking stock photos is absolutely key. So Midjourney is probably top of the list for my image generation. As far as like research goes, there's a few. Like one of the big names that you've probably heard this year too is called Perplexity. Perplexity is getting very, very popular, and Perplexity is a answers engine that looks and acts like a large language model, but it's not a large language model. It actually doesn't even have a large language model embedded into it. It's designed to plug into large language models. So Perplexity's entire job is to scrape web data, scrape web data and get information and then summarize it and use a large language model to respond, right? So one of my favorite parts about Perplexity is if you're using the Pro subscription, which is also $20 a month, you have the ability to plug different large language models into the back end of it. So for instance, I can use Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which is an amazing writer, sounds very, very human. So I can use Perplexity to pull market stats and have Claude respond in my speech style. And the variation of sentences and paragraphs is much more human-like than it comes off of ChatGPT, right? And then you can also plug in like Llama, Grok, which is Elon Musk's AI from XAI. You can just plug all these different large language models into it. And this is going to be huge, I think, because the thing that Perplexity did is it introduced us to a new way of searching the internet. So Google, like we talked about in the beginning, it's in a lot of trouble. Like people don't want to search the internet that way anymore. So when it comes to the future, I think that we're going to shy away from Google and more people are going to use things like Perplexity on a regular basis to find their information online. And we see this also with ChatGPT or OpenAI because they've just recently released Search GPT, right? So if you're a Plus user, you probably notice that little globe next to the attachment button on the bar. Well, if you click that, then that enables Search GPT and it uses Browse with Bing to search in the same way that Perplexity does, but it's not as good in my opinion. Both of them have the ability to make mistakes, but Perplexity's just seems to be way more advanced. So I love Perplexity for research and just getting new information. But as real estate agents, there comes times when we need to analyze large documents, right? So the biggest app that I use right now in my business next to ChatGPT is probably Notebook LM. And that's what I'm going to be saying is my app of the year. Not that anybody cares, but like my app of the year is going to be for 2024 is going to be Notebook LM. Notebook LM is Google's large language model technology. So it's using Gemini 1.5 Pro, which is Google's large language model, but it's grounded. So what grounded means is that it actually doesn't have a knowledge base. It has all the inner workings of a large language model, but it's not trained on anything. So the way that Notebook LM works is that we have to upload the data ourselves into its knowledge base, kind of like on a custom GPT, right? But it's not trained on any outside data. So it can only pull from what we fed it, which minimizes the risk of hallucination. So use case scenario, I am under contract on a non-conforming property. And I need to understand why the appraiser does not want to appraise the property because they're saying highest and best use is industrial. This house has been residential since the beginning of time, but it is in an industrial area now. So you would upload the county zoning guidelines and regulations, which is like a 3,000 page PDF, dude. It's like huge. You upload that into a Notebook LM and start telling it your situation. You know, hey, I need to understand if this is grandfathered in. If there is a grandfather clause, what is that grandfather clause? Are there any other areas that would make this property not conform to the current conforming? And how can I justify this to the appraiser, right? And it goes through that whole document, lines it out, shows me all the CRS codes, which are Colorado regulatory statute codes that show that this is grandfathered in, and I'm able to get a better result for my client. So if you're an agent and you're doing any type of large document research, Notebook LLM, wow, Notebook LM, it's a long day. Notebook LM is your place to go, man. So check that out. It's like a large language model, but like I said, it's grounded and it only goes off the data that we put into it.
Yeah, that's so important, right? Because what it has as far as information in its knowledge base and what it can, what it can draw upon does determine the output and the information. So one of the big issues for me when I was building the custom GPTs or trying to get it to have a certain response to certain answers, and you have to play around with it a couple of times. So I'm guessing this Notebook LM tool has a much better just accuracy rate based on kind of the information that you want to draw upon and the responses that it'll give to you rather than just like you mentioned hallucinating or finding information on the internet or just coming up with stuff on its own.
Exactly. Yeah. The large language models are notorious for just pulling into their own training data, right? And sometimes it won't even have to get onto the internet. Like, all large language models are trained on a certain data set up to a certain date. So it'll just grab what it can and it'll throw it out there. And like I said, it can be convincingly wrong, right? So when we're doing things like this that are very, very serious for our clients and for the accuracy of how we're conducting business, Notebook LM is a significantly safer solution than going into ChatGPT for this large document analysis.
Yep, absolutely, and that's why you're the expert on AI, and all the awards go to you, Adam, because you know a little bit more than everybody else. So,
I'm a geek, man. I spend way too much time on it. My wife, she's very patient, but she watches a lot of stuff with me, and researching AI is probably one of the most boring things that you could possibly do because what I have to do is it's still so new, right? So there's not much use cases that come out. Like if you look up AI in real estate on YouTube, like you're gonna get my videos and Mike Sherrard's videos, right? Because we're on the forefront of this, and I don't mean to be like, oh, we're on the forefront, but it's literally the way it is right now. There's only a few big people inside the AI world, inside of real estate. So I spend most of my time on the developer side of things, watching what's coming out and then figuring out, okay, how can this new technology be used for practical applications inside the real estate business? Right. So I do that process and then I try to bring it to agents out so they can use it. And yeah, man, it's a long process. It's a part-time job for sure. I got at least 20 hours a week on it. You
wow.
know?
Yeah, but that's where that's where the money's made, right? When you can get it into the forefront of something, and I think that's why many agents are learning about this or excited about it, even those who are not tech savvy in the past, because now they're realizing the power of AI and ChatGPT specifically. They are now just kind of trying to get more information on it and use it and test it, which is a really good thing, right? If you're
Yeah.
trying and testing things that can really help as well. So just one more question before we pivot to the next point. But
Yeah.
do you have any coding background? Is that something you've done in the past? Because you seem to understand a lot of this kind of behind the scenes stuff.
Dude, surprisingly enough, no. I don't know I can't do Python. Okay. I understand a little tiny bit, but I don't know how, so the way that I started realizing what coding was through variables inside of our CRM. So for
Mm,
those of you that are probably scratching your head, like what the hell's a variable inside of a CRM? Well, when you have a automatic email go out and it automatically puts the lead's name in there, you'll notice that the CRM has a certain way of coding that. Like it'll usually be like hashtag lead underscore first name hashtag, right? Well, that is a piece of HTML or a piece of coding that the program recognizes and knows what to put into it, right? So That's about as far as I go with it. So I can look at some HTML and I can kind of start to decipher it. But when it comes to like actually writing code, no way. Not even close, dude. I'm not that tech savvy. I'm just that kid that wasn't afraid to break the program. Like that's it. Like I have no technical or traditional education on technology. I'm like, can this do that? Oh, nope, it can't. Well, why not? That's I think what sets me apart from a lot of people is that when you get that no, it can't, or you realize that no, it can't, the way my brain works is that I have to find out why, right? Like even when it comes and the best comparison is like cars, right? You have all of these different types of cars, just like we all have these different types of CRMs, right? You've got Boomtown, you've got Commissions Inc., you've got Lofty, you've got KV Core, all of these CRMs, and most people look at it like, oh my gosh, I don't even know CRMs in general, let alone all of them, but they're like cars. You have Mercedes, you have BMW, you have, Chevrolet, but they all have an engine, they all have a transmission. They all have drive axles, right? Some of them work a little differently, but the guts are still there. And that's kind of the perspective that I started to realize when I would refuse to take no for an answer, right? So I'd have to find out why. So like when I was starting to test ChatGPT and I'm like, why can't ChatGPT write a 200-word blog? Why won't it get to 200 words? So I start researching that, right? Oh, what's tokenization? I better figure out more about tokenization. So you go down that rabbit hole. And I just do this obsessively. I have severe ADHD, and like, as crazy as it sounds, sometimes we can hone in on one thing and just go ham on it. And that's what I did with AI, and I still do to this day. So now, further down the road, it's led down some paths of certification. Like I did IBM's AI Foundation certification. I'm Make certified. So I go through these little courses that are offered to people on like more of the developer end. And then just like I said, figure out the inner workings and how this works. And then that way, when I go play with it again and something goes wrong, I can know, oh, I know why this is going wrong. Let's change this.
Yeah. So having that mindset allows you to utilize things better, right? That's kind of
Mhm.
what people need to understand. And I ask you this because, you know, when you're talking about AI and all of the back ends and everything about that, from the outside looking in, it definitely feels like you're somebody who knows code or have some type of coding background or has learned code specifically for this purpose. But I love that you answered that you don't have a background in coding and you're just somebody who likes to test and try things and wants to understand if it's not giving you the right answer, why not? And how do we get to the right answer the next time, right? It's just very kind of basic, experimentation at
Mhm.
that point, which is something that anybody can do and anybody from a basic level can understand. So that's why I asked you that because, a lot of people who have these coding backgrounds, they're not even utilizing AI as much as you have, and they really should be, right? So this really is something that is accessible to everybody and will become more accessible as well, in my opinion. So that's what I kind of want to get your take on that. But Adam, man, so let's talk a little bit now about your journey here at EXP and Wolfpack, man. So you've been an agent for a little while. So, what was your journey like as far as joining EXP, kind of approaching this opportunity, and what has it done for your career as a real estate agent now that you're building your agent prompt university, you're helping other agents as well, and this is kind of an opportunity that not a lot of agents at different brokerages are taking advantage of because they don't have the incentives tied to it.
Yeah, man. So, in order to say how I got with EXP, first you need to understand that I've been with 10 brokerages in 8.5 years. So I, as you can tell by me, by looking at me, I mean, I'm not like a regular realtor, right? Like I have a certain vibe about me and I'm very decisive. I know exactly what I want. I knew what I wanted to do with my business and I just couldn't find the happy medium between the brokerages that I was associating myself with and what I wanted to do. Not only that, but the competitive nature inside some of these brokerages. Like I'm all about competition and stuff, but like you can't even get really good training from a lot of these because they give you the what you need to know and then the secret sauce, which there's really no secret sauce, but some of the real tactical maneuvers and stuff like that get withheld because of that inner office competitive nature, right? So I ended up online. I was with HomeSmart, So if you guys don't know what that is, it's 100% brokerage with like $20 a month office fees. So you can basically join this brokerage and be a very lazy person and not want to work and still make your commission, right? It breeds, in my opinion, excuse me, it breeds laziness, in my opinion. And that's what it did to me. So I found myself broke and trying to revamp a Facebook ad. So I was on YouTube and I saw this dude, Mike Sherrard, and he was like, hey, if you take this step-by-step process, you'll start getting Facebook leads today. And I'm like, at this point in time, I'm like, okay, I'll try it. I'm pretty experienced with running Facebook ads and I had done very well, but I wanted to get my ad spend down again because I was spending more per lead than I wanted to. So I ran this video and it worked. It worked. Like long story short, it worked. It did everything that he said it was going to do. So he got my attention because as you and I both know in this industry, that's a rarity that somebody says to do something and it actually works, right? Like so many people are out there being gurus off of something that they heard and they're just regurgitating that information with no actual use case study or any proof on it, right? So when I started getting results on that, I was like, all right, eyes are open. Let's figure this out. So I start watching some more of Mike's material and he starts talking about the Social Agent Academy. And I wanted to buy that, but I didn't have the money for it at the time. So I just kept watching videos. And then eventually I saw a podcast or a collaboration video kind of like this. And at the bottom of the screen comes this little banner that's like, hey, you can get all this training we're talking about and more, plus the Social Agent Academy in bold for free. And I was like, oh, shoot, how do I do that? So I clicked the link, booked a call, talked to Mike. He hooked me up with a couple of local people here, Louie and Jeremy. And guys, that was the moment my life changed. And I'm not just saying that, dude. Like there's measurable proof that this was a pinnacle moment in my real estate career because I found my fam, dude. Like for the first time in 8.5 years, I was surrounded by agents that were winning first and foremost. And not only were they winning, but they wanted me to win too. And they weren't worried about, hey, Adam, your beard's too long. You don't look like a typical professional. Maybe you should put a suit on. Oh, how about not calling your clients and leads dude? Like, no, that ain't me, man. You know what I mean? Like, does that cost me clients? Sure. But does it also attract my tribe and give me like the most perfect clients ever? Like, yeah, absolutely. Right. So these guys were just a whole nother level, man. So I joined. I was like, yeah, let's do it, man. And I figured I'd give the Wolfpack a shot. That was March of 2023. And in that little year and a half time span, I came into EXP with one source of income. I had my production business and it wasn't doing very good, right? Not only is my production business doing great because the proximity of the training that we get, it's really hard not to implement some of this stuff. So it just starts becoming a byproduct, right? So my production business is going good. I'm now coaching agents on multiple different levels, right? I'm a coach for the Atlas Alliance Mastermind, and I've got my AI CRM coaching. I've got Agent Prompt University. I've got RevShare, and now I've got company stock. So in less than a year and a half, I went from one source of income, broke agent, to 6 sources of income, making more money than I've ever made in my career. And the only real explanation is that I plugged into the right group of people that actually cared, right? Like these guys care. I was pushed into, literally pushed into creating this course. Otherwise, I'd have been scared, you know, I'd be like, oh, I've never created an educational course before, and I'm a high school dropout. Why should I do that? But Louie and Mike and Jeremy are like, dude, you have to do this. Like, this is, and here's how you do it. Like, go do it. Right. And I did. And now Agent Prompt University is crushing it. And I landed the Inman AI award, first ever AI award on that note. Like they just started giving out the awards and somehow my name lands on their desk. Like wild stuff, dude. And it's all because of the Wolfpack, man. It's all because of this family type environment that we have inside this group that is absolutely like nothing I've experienced in the previous 9 brokerages I was with.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. I think that's kind of a theme for all the agents who came over and they're having more success than they've ever had. They have more income streams than ever, and there's a renewed passion for them to share everything they know with other agents because there's an incentive to do so now. through the revenue share model. So thanks
Yeah.
for that testimony, man. I think that's wonderful that you're able to share that. And I'm so happy for you and your success as well. The inaugural winner of Inman's AI Best Use, for an Agent Award. How cool is that? There's literally one person in the world that can say they won that inaugural award, right? And that's you. So,
Right. So wild, man. But yeah, dude, all thanks to the Wolfpack, man. And another kind of testament to this is like you and I, right? We've seen each other on Zoom calls many, many times, right? And then we meet in Miami for EXPCon, and it was like we already knew each other like immediately, right? Like we're hanging out, like everything's just, and that's how it is like as a whole, right? So I think that a lot of us as agents, because this is such a lonely industry, we're craving that partnership, that brotherhood or sisterhood, whatever that may be for you. Like we're craving that connection, and like you can't get this anywhere else, at least not that I've found. You know what I mean? Like for 3,300 agents across 22 countries, and we can meet in one central location. There's about 160 of us or something like that. And like it's wild how family based it is, dude. Like it's I can't even describe it. Like you literally have to come and experience what you and I experienced for to get this.
yeah, it's definitely something that I never expected as well, and I'm so grateful for it, just like you are, and so many other agents here at the Wolfpack are as well. So I love it, man. Come over and experience it for yourself.
Heck
But
yeah.
Adam,
You got to
man,
plug in though. If you don't plug in, it ain't gonna work, dude.
I love that you said that because that's exactly what John said yesterday when I had him on the show as well. You have to plug in because if you're not plugging in, then it's like you're just any other brokerage, right?
Yep.
You're not utilizing the things in the community that's given to you, then why bother at that point?
100%, dude. 100%.
Yeah. But Adam, man, appreciate you being here today. And man, this is probably the best episode on AI that we've done. We've done a couple, but I think this is the one that we've dug the deepest into. So, for the listeners out there that want to learn more about what you're doing, maybe they want to partner up with you, join the Wolfpack, right? Learn a little bit more about what you're doing for your coaching clients. Get into Agent Prompt University. What are some of the best places for people to reach you? Or to kind of get a hold of you and some of the things that you're doing.
Yeah, man. Easiest way to figure out how to get a hold of me is just to Google Adam Gillespie inside of YouTube, sorry, search YouTube for Adam Gillespie. You can Google Adam Gillespie AI and it'll pull up pretty much everything. But my heaviest social media platforms are going to be Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Instagram and Facebook are more for my personal stuff where just kind of, you can kind of see the behind the scenes Adam, the dude playing guitar and cussing a lot. And then my YouTube channels for the education. So if you guys want to dive deeper on AI and CRM training, specifically Lofty, I train agents on Lofty, but I can train you on any. I got my YouTube channel for that. And then, like you said, Agent Prompt University is quickly becoming one of the most industry recognized practical application type courses. Will actually teach you how to use ChatGPT and AI for real stuff in your business. So whether that's, on the very basic side of things of creating listing presentations, or if we're scraping our agent that we're negotiating with's personality type off of the internet and then bringing it into ChatGPT and adjusting our negotiation tactics based on their personality profile. So I show you guys all of these major ways to use it. And that one's actually not trying to sell anybody, but for the rest of the year until January 1, I still have introductory pricing to that. So you can get lifetime access to the course and the community, which is hosted on the Circle platform. And we even have weekly mastermind calls that just dive into AI and how we can use it. You can buy into that whole system right now for $497, and it gives you lifetime access. But as of January 1, we're going to a $97 a month subscription platform on it, which is still insanely valuable for what you get from the program. But right now, yeah, it's one of those things where you can lock in for life, man, if you guys want to. And it is a 4-phase course that'll take you from beginner to absolute expert in ChatGPT. Plus, you still have me on the weekly mastermind calls to show you all the new stuff and all the updates and everything like that. So
Yeah.
that's what I got for you guys, man.
Yeah, awesome, man. We'll make sure to leave all of that in the description in the show notes down below so that way people can find it easily and find your links. But definitely suggest you guys go check out Adam's YouTube channel, if not anything, right? There's a lot of great free information on there on how to use AI. And if you guys really want to get deeper into it, make sure to check out Agent Prompt University. I'm sure it's a great course, and there's a lot of success stories coming out of that as well. And I can't think of a better person to plug into on this specific topic. But Adam, man, appreciate you. Before I let you go, is there any last piece of advice, any last tips you want to leave with the audience here?
Yeah, guys, if you haven't gotten onto the AI train yet, do it. Just get on it. Just go for it. It's going to feel overwhelming at first, but you will start to pick it up just like anything else that's new. When we first started real estate school, it was overwhelming, right? Oh my gosh, all this law I got to learn, but we figured it out. Same thing with that, because if you guys don't jump on this train, agents that are using AI are going to make your job extraordinarily difficult, and you will not have a fair competitive advantage to those of us that are using it. So this is not maybe I'll get on it someday. This is you need to get on it now. You're already behind the curve if you're not on it yet. So you got some catching up to do. So let's link up. Let me get you caught up. So that way we can be, ahead of the competition and be able to utilize this technology with the best of the industry.
Yep, that's some great advice, man. Appreciate you. Appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you in the next show.
Thanks for
Take
having me
care.
on, brother. Right on.